Cheryl Seco here, avoidingmold.com. I'm a licensed architect specializing in healthy homes, water damage, and mold. And find out more at avoidingmold.com. That's my website. Today I'm going to talk about what is black mold. And we see this term a lot. Well, it's not black mold, or oh my gosh, I think I do have black mold. And black mold is actually not a technical term. Usually the type of mold that gets described as black mold is a mold spore called Stachybotrys. And Stachybotrys has a long history of being known to be very, very toxic. It has some mycotoxins that this spore puts out, which are also very toxic. A neurotoxin in horses, so this was first discovered, I think, in the 30s, and studied in grains and in hay in respect to horses. So this is something that could take down a horse. Now, there's not a lot of research related to any mold spores in human beings. As you can imagine, there's probably not going to be a good control group of people who are going to sign up to be exposed to something that's potentially toxic. But there's quite a bit of research related to animals, and especially when it comes to horses, I would look at that, and I do look at that and think, oh, okay, well, if it can take down a horse, if it can affect the endocrine system of a horse, then I'm going to pay attention. So black mold is usually referred to something called Stachybotrys, but what I want you to know is that mold comes in many different colors. And black mold isn't the only toxic mold out there. Stachybotrys is not the only mold out there, although it is very toxic. Stachybotrys itself is a very sticky, heavy mold spore that usually comes after very long-term water damage in a building or in grain or hay or something else, but long-term mold growth. But that doesn't mean there aren't other types of molds that are as dangerous and as Stachybotrys might be. Stachybotrys is actually very hard to catch, either in dust or in air quality samples, because it is heavy and sticky, which means it doesn't go airborne. That doesn't mean it's not making mycotoxins that are going airborne and making people very sick. So I have other videos that I'm going to talk about symptoms that people might be experiencing. It's not always what you might think. But know that there's lots of mold species. In fact, there's more than 75,000 in one science study I was reading of different mold species out there, of which we may have only been studying 30 to 40 species. So if you're testing for mold and you don't find anything, that may be because there's something in the environment that hasn't been tested yet. It may not even be identified. So always keep that in mind, that there's a lot more mold species out there than have ever been even tested or studied. Surely many of them are toxic, just like the ones we do know about. And with mold comes bacteria. Also not a good thing. Mold and bacteria can be many, many different colors. Black is just one color. Mold can be green, it can be white, look like lint. It can be orange, purple, yellow, all those colors. And bacteria can be different colors as well. So sometimes we don't know whether it's mold or bacteria, but neither one is good in a building. So just know that somebody's saying, oh, it's not black mold, so you're safe, is not likely to be an accurate description of anything scientific. Black mold as a term is not scientific. It doesn't necessarily mean Stachybotrys. There are other mold species that are also black, and Stachybotrys actually can be green in some cases that I've heard about. So it's not a technical term, although it is used quite frequently in describing very toxic mold. And just know that there's a lot of very toxic mold species out there. Be careful with any of these. They're all have the potential to be highly toxic to people in many different ways and can affect one person in a different way than another. And some people don't even notice the reaction until after they've been exposed for even a short period of time. They may be sick. I know for myself, if I'm exposed to something, I can be sick for 3 days afterwards. And sometimes it feels like it can be the flu or be itchy skin or just a fatigue, something like that, and you don't necessarily connect it. So know that everybody's DNA is different. The way everyone reacts is different. And if there is one person who is the canary in the coal mine, which means they're more sensitive to other people, then we need to pay attention to that, just as the coal miners did when a canary went down in a coal mine and died because the air was toxic there and the canary was more sensitive. everybody else working in the coal mine knew they needed to get out because they would be next. And so when we have people who are highly sensitive, we should pay attention to them, and we should all be noticing that that might be a sign for the rest of us that we should be careful as well, because everybody's bucket's going to overflow at a different time, and this stuff can be really nasty. So I hope that's helpful in understanding what black mold is and what it isn't. And check out my website, avoidingmold.com. Like my Facebook page, Cheryl Seco Architect, and get on my newsletter list to get more tips like this as they come out. And I will keep doing these to further my mission to create awareness and get other people to understand what is really going on and the science behind it. So I hope this is helpful, and thanks for watching.